Support for today's episode comes from Amazon, sharing stories and initiatives focused on protecting water resources and strengthening water resilience in communities around the world. Idaho deepens Japan ties as semiconductor supply chains shift. Semiconductor and AI supply chains reshape U.S. industry. Idaho sent a state trade delegation to Japan last month. The timing was not incidental. Micron Technology, headquartered in Boise, recently committed to $200 billion in domestic semiconductor investment, accelerated its Idaho fab timeline, and received an additional $275 million in CHIPS Act funding with expedited federal permitting support. The state is now inside one of the more consequential manufacturing buildouts in recent U.S. industrial history. Representatives from the Idaho Department of Commerce, the Boise Valley Economic Partnership, BE, and the city of Boise were in Japan from April 21st to 25th for an innovative tech trade mission that covered semiconductors, AI, aerospace, food technology, and logistics. Meetings included Hitachi, Mitsubishi Chemical Corporation, Sumitomo Corporation, and the Japan External Trade Organization, JERO. Idaho Commerce Director Tom Keeley described the mission as building credibility and trust with Japan's critical technology and energy industries, citing the state's Japan Trade Office and Micron as instrumental in securing the meetings. Japan is not a peripheral partner in semiconductor manufacturing. It remains a leading supplier of the specialty chemicals, fabrication equipment, and precision materials that chip-making depends on. Companies such as Stella Chemifa and Mitsubishi Chemical operate in segments essential to dynamic random access memory, DRAM, fabrication. Idaho is working to build upstream supplier relationships that support a domestic chip ecosystem centered on Micron, rather than waiting for that ecosystem to form around it. Micron's Idaho expansion is accelerating, while the New York timeline shifts. Micron has committed to $200 billion in domestic semiconductor production, quadrupling its previous investment pledge, with $150 billion allocated to manufacturing and $50 billion to research and development. The plan includes a new fab in Idaho, 2 in New York, and expansion of its Virginia facility, with an expected 90,000 jobs nationwide. The company reallocated a portion of its CHIPS and Science Act funding to accelerate construction of the Boise fab, pushing the commissioning of its New York facilities back 2 to 3 years. Micron expects to begin DRAM production in Idaho by 2027. The CHIPS Act relationship between Micron and Japan runs in both directions. Japan's government-approved $1.3 billion in subsidies for Micron's Hiroshima facility, covering nearly 40% of the company's investment there, to support installation of extreme ultraviolet lithography equipment for advanced chip production. That bilateral investment dynamic is part of what makes Idaho's Japan engagement more than a standard trade mission. AI demand is the pressure behind the supply chain strategy. The acceleration in semiconductor investment, both domestically and in Japan, is being driven in large part by AI infrastructure growth. Data center expansion and advanced computing workloads are increasing demand for memory chips, advanced packaging, power infrastructure, cooling systems, and specialty materials at a pace that existing supply chains were not built to meet. For states positioned near major fabrication investment, that demand is creating real opportunity. It is also creating pressure. Semiconductor and AI-related industrial growth brings concentrated demand for energy, water, transmission capacity, and permitting infrastructure. Idaho's hydropower availability and lower-cost energy access are assets in that calculus. How the state's infrastructure handles concentrated industrial load at scale is a question that will take years to answer. Governor Brad Little has announced a fall trade mission to Japan, with additional visits to Taiwan, where TSMC and its advanced chip manufacturing ecosystem remains central to the global semiconductor sector. The dual focus reflects how state-level economic development strategy has become inseparable from geopolitical supply chain priorities that were, until recently, almost exclusively a federal conversation. Sustainability Soundbites. Water coverage is sponsored by Amazon. Visit the link in our show notes to learn more about Amazon's Spotlight on Water. For sponsorship opportunities with Environment and Energy Leader, please reach out to a member of our team.